Alright, Gadgeteers, welcome back to another fantastic Fast Gadgets video. Today, pretty straightforward, but before I get started, I do want to let you know that I have the window open, so you may hear some extraneous noises like the siren I hear now, possibly airplanes and the wind, because we're supposed to get some thunderstorms shortly. Anyway, let's move on. So what I've got planned today is to upgrade my Fedora 28 to Fedora 30. So this is something I've never done before, so I'm going to be extra safe and make sure I do a complete backup before I actually perform the upgrade. And the video files that I'm producing on the system right now by talking to you and shooting the video, I'm going to go ahead and put on a NTFS portable drive just in case, and I can finish editing on my laptop if I need to. So we're really going to go for the gold here. So wanted to show you what's going on down here. You can see I've got the command line running, and what it's doing right now is doing the refresh, which is one of the things you have to do before you do an update. It's recommended anyway. So if you look here, we have a sudo dnf space upgrade space -- refresh. So I can see it's pulling in all of those Fedora core, well, it says FC, it's not been called Fedora core for a long time, but FC 28, so Fedora 28 packages to do the final update. And once that gets done, what I'd like to do is continue on and see if we can do an update directly to Fedora 30. So let's just have a look before we go any further and talk about what's going to be in Fedora 30. Now, it's out now, and many of you have probably seen a video on Fedora 30 already. I'm a little bit behind the curve right now, but something I've wanted to do. So what are some of the new features? This is by Abhishek Prakash. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, and it came out in late April on itsfoss.com. The awesome Fedora 30 is here. So I wasn't overly impressed with the feature set. Now, I know in the background there's plenty of updates and fixes, but let's talk about some of the visual improvements. So allegedly, and I'm going to want to try this, is the latest release of GNOME 3.32. They say has refreshed new icons and a new UI. Well, these are usually the kind of things that I don't care very much about. First of all, I use KDE Plasma, and having new icons and the new UI, which to me it basically looks exactly the same, except for, of course, these icons have changed. That's great. What else do we have? Now, these are a little bit more interesting to me. There are other features for GNOME 3.32, like fractional scaling, permission control for each application, granular control on the night light intensity, among many other changes. There also will be some performance improvements. I hope that's the case. Smoother scrolling would be nice. Now, the one thing I like about GNOME is if I use it on my laptop, I have a touchscreen, so I'm able to use the touchscreen to do things on, which I can do on Plasma as well. But when you're in Plasma, basically it's akin to being able to move the mouse. And I haven't even tried double clicking. I'm assuming you can double click, but it's much more intuitive with Fedora when you're using GNOME when you have a touchscreen. So it's almost like being on your phone, and I really like that. I used to have the Yoga 920, which of course you can flip all the way around and turn it into a sort of tablet, and I did use GNOME that way for a little while to experiment with it, and it was pretty cool, and I'm sure it's gotten better since then. So allegedly, Fedora 30 will see a faster DNF. DNF, of course, is the dandified version of Yum, which is the default update package manager. Well, you can do more than update. You can remove, you can install new ones, all kinds of stuff. But DNF is now using the Z-Chunk compression algorithms. So now these packages should come more compressed, so hopefully that'll make a difference. You can see down here I'm on package 462 of 921. Not too bad, and I do have a super fast internet connection, but if you don't have a fast internet connection, this should be helpful to you when installing Fedora packages or doing updates. There are 2 new desktop environments that are going to be available. So there's already a ton out there, but now you can use Elementary OS's Pantheon desktop environment and Deepin Linux, Deepin DE. I have had very little experimentation with Elementary OS and Deepin DE, probably more with Elementary OS. Personally, again, I don't change that often. I use KDE Plasma the most, and sometimes I'll use GNOME, but it's usually for testing purposes. So I don't really need these other ones, but I may experiment with Elementary OS again just to see what it's like and see if there's been any changes or something that I could use that would be functional over KDE Plasma. We have Linux kernel 5 now, so Fedora 29 is going to, well, at the time of this writing, it would get 5.0.9. I'm sure it's updated much further since then. The kernel that I'm currently on, I can't remember which one it is. It's a 4. Kernel, 4.x kernel. And I did have a few growing pains when I first started using Fedora 28. As I mentioned before, my camera would not work, the 4K Logitech Brio that I'm using right now to record this. So that was a bit of a problem, but after a few updates, the kernel was updated. I can't say that it was a problem with the kernel. It could have been one of the packages, but GovCView, all the settings reappeared for my camera, and all was well. As you can imagine, there'll be newer versions of software here. This doesn't surprise me at all. Bash Shell 5.0 going with the kernel. Maybe you want to do a clean install. If you want to do a clean install, you can download Fedora 30. In probably about 2 to 3 months, Fedora 31 is going to be released. So this is more of an academic exercise than necessary because everything's working on my computer right now, but I just want to see if I can do this and how Fedora 30 works out. So I'm going to go down here real quick. I'm going to make the font much larger for those like me who can barely see anymore. And if I do a uname-r, you can see that right now I'm on 4.20.8-100 of Fedora Core 28. So this kernel is, you know, a little bit older now. We're in the 5X kernel. One thing I did want to try, if you look at another good article by the same person on itsfoss.com, he upgrades from Fedora 29 to Fedora 30, and as you know, there's basically 2 ways to do it. One is the graphical user interface, and the second way is via the command line. Now, normally I do it via the command line, and I think it might work via the command line. I'm not so sure it would work via the GUI. And the downside with the GUI, of course, is I may not be able to move my video files over to my backup drive prior to Linux doing the setup. So, well, no, I guess you can. It does have a restart and install. But I've noticed it appears, and I recall that from previous updates, that it basically takes control of the desktop. My cat's kissing my leg. That was kind of unnerving. Anyway, so I prefer the command line, and I know there are many people who say, you know, why don't you ever do the GUI? Well, let's do one thing. I'm not going to use the GUI to do an upgrade. However, I'm going to put in software, and we are going to load the software app. And I am going to enable my third-party repositories. However, don't really need to. So let's wait a few minutes, and eventually we should see a variety of packages that are available. Usually what I see is the Fedora OS update here. So I'm just curious if it'll show up. If it doesn't, yeah, they're telling me Fedora 29. So what I'm about to do might be a little risky and could possibly cause problems. So I'm sure on a technical level I should go to Fedora 29 and then Fedora 30, but you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet, so what the heck. I'm gonna go ahead and close software, and I'm gonna do I think I might already have the tool, DNF install DNF-plugin system-upgrade and enter. Okay, so I do not have the tools yet. So all this is a plugin for DNF, which of course is the package manager of Fedora, to let me, and it's already installed, do the upgrade. You would think 28 and 29 wouldn't be that different, so I'm expecting one of two things. It's going to say yes, I can do it and try, or it's going to say no because I'm on the wrong version, in which case we'll just go ahead and upgrade to 29 and then 30. So let's do the next command. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it in. I'm going to move this up a little bit so hopefully you can see better, and press enter. And yes, our system is fully upgraded, meaning we did the refresh and upgrade of Fedora 28. So it's going to go ahead and download the Fedora 30 packages. So this could be very interesting. Now, this is going to take a little while, so I think what I'll do is stop my recording here, transfer my video file over to my backup system, the file we're creating right now, and I'm going to do the update and see what happens. What's the worst that could happen? Okay, see you on the flip side. Alright folks, I've switched to my Sony AX53 4K camera. Hopefully you can hear me okay. If not, I'll just overdub this with my voice. So you can see that the download is complete, and I basically have all the packages for Fedora Core 30. So the next thing I have to do is issue a DNF system upgrade reboot, and I'm going to copy that. Now I do want to mention, you'll notice I'm just going to leave the browser window open, and the reason is it'll refresh and bring up each one of these particular tabs when we reboot. Not really that important this time, but I kind of like being able to have my tabs recover, so if I close it, of course, there will be no tabs to recover. Okay, so let's paste in our reboot DNF system-upgrade and reboot. So here we go. Will it work? Hard to say. I'm going to try and keep the whole screen on camera so you can see what it's doing. Expect things in the upper left hand corner. So there we go. We got the reboot going. And I did a little adjustment to the camera. And we are waiting for the reboot. Sometimes it takes a few minutes, no big deal. The real tale to tell is whether or not this system comes up after the installation. So I'm going to give it a few more minutes, and I have not powered my system all the way down and unplugged it in quite some time, so it probably needs me to do that. Give me 1 second. Okay, I had the system powered down for roughly 30 seconds, and I mean totally powered down. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the power button, and I do expect it's going to boot up, but you never know. Should see a BIOS screen shortly. At the very least, there we go. And Fedora, I'm going to move the cursor here so the timer stops. Let's see, are we getting everything in? Sorry for the squeaky tripod. Okay, so we've got Fedora 5.0.16, my previous kernel, 4.20.8. So let's do it. Gonna press enter, and we're gonna go for the gold. Now, many of you know what typically happens is, the pretty splash screen comes up and you can see the icon, the Fedora icon in the middle of the screen, and then it says starting system upgrade. This will take a while. Up there in the corner. Usually what I do is press escape, and then you can see what's going on. So those are all the packages that I believe are marked for upgrade, and it did do, if you can see right in this area here, it removed the older kernels and the older modules and extra and any other dependent packages. And let's see, it's now going ahead with the upgrade, which, honestly doesn't mean anything unless it actually works. I don't know if you can tell, but it's on, it looks like about 100 of 5,270 packages and functions, like running a script and different update features that it has to do in this process. So I'm not going to keep the camera running all this time, but I did want you to see what this part of the upgrade looks like. If you press escape again, it goes back to the GUI if you prefer that. Up in the corner you can see which particular package it's working on, and then it's got the icon for Fedora in the middle, and as it fills up you basically get an indicator of how far it's gone. So depending on how you like it, you can do it either way. I'll just leave it this way right now, and we will be back in just a flash. Okay, the final package verification step is just about to wrap up. When it does, you're going to be here with me for the reboot, which I believe is happening right now. And the system is rebooting. The CPU fan got quiet. Coming back up. We're hoping for the best. Otherwise, nope, got our BIOS boot menu. Much newer kernel now, 5.2.9-200. Alright, let's see what happens. Got the GUI. Now I have a two-screen system, so you probably won't be able to see me log in. It's thinking. Remember, we can always hit escape on the keyboard if we want to see what's going on. Samba SMB Daemon was starting. Alright, I'm going to log in. Okay, so it's a little bit easier to see with desktop capture, so I have switched over to my desktop and I'm currently using OBS, so you can see that OBS is functioning just perfect. It's picking up my microphone and capturing our current desktop. I have two screens, so I move OBS over to the right screen, so you normally won't see that, but you can see that it's running here. The first thing I want to do is make sure I have an internet connection. Just to be easy on myself, I just launch Firefox and see if I get a connection, and I have. So we're able to see a website. Everything seems to be functional. Just to double check. All right, everything's kosher. And I'll just minimize that for now. The next thing that I normally check is GovCView, but I don't think I can while OBS has the camera. So if I come over here and I do cam full, you can see that right now OBS has control of the camera, but earlier I did a quick test with GovCView and it worked perfectly, and all of my settings were available, so I'm really happy with that. I also like to check out GIMP, New Image Manipulation Program, and I guess you could call it the open source version of Adobe Photoshop, depending on which one you like. And I'm going to open a recent project that I was working on, which is a thumbnail for one of the videos I released recently. And my doggy's trying to bark, so I do apologize if she barks. Let's just create a new layer. So I'm going to go over here and make sure that I've got something bold selected. Hello? Oh, I guess it's already selected. That makes it easier. And 200, and we have a different color. So we'll go ahead and just go over here and do a test, and we can see it created a new layer. Did not intend for that layer to move. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Let me go to select and see if we can stop it. There we go. So I can take the test layer, I can move it up, I can move this layer, and why? Now I've got all the other ones locked. Let's see. There we go. Now it's moving as it should. So everything looks good. Definitely have GIMP working the way I need it to. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and discard changes. Next thing, Kdenlive. Let's see if Kdenlive opens okay. So I'm going to go to File, Open Recent, and of course I've been working on this video. We see that the title font Noto Sans will be replaced by Deja Vu Sans, so I guess Noto Sans is gone, which isn't really a problem with me. It lets me know that it has changed my project file. And let's just run something. So I'm sure on a technical level I should go to Fedora 20. And it does seem to be running just fine, so we're good there. Let's see, what else do I usually check? Well, I want to see what this new font looks like. So, oh, here comes the garbage truck, so if it gets really loud, I do apologize. Okay, there's one of my title clips. Now, it doesn't look as good, of course, at the moment because it's just in the editor. But I can tell that the font is essentially the same. Looks like it's moved over a little to the right, so I'm just going to recenter this. So there is a little bit of change, but nothing I have to worry about. So I'll click OK, and you can see that I'm going to go ahead and save this setting. And it's always nice to do a test render. So we're going to go into Settings and Configure Kdenlive and Environment. I'm going to go ahead and change my processing threads to 14. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna leave it at 1. Reason is I'm using OBS right now. I'm sure I could change this to 8 or 10, but I'm just going to leave it as 1. Why do we ever use 1? Because when you're editing, if you want to do scrubbing back and forth on your video or audio, you really need to have 1 selected. So let's do a test render, and I'm going to do selected zone, which usually will select a small area that's pre-selected. So we're going to look at more options. So 15, the low number, is the highest quality video, 160 kbps audio capture. Coder speed somewhere in the middle. So essentially what that means is if you have it lower, I know it says CPUs, but basically what happens is if you have it down here, it's much slower, but the file size is smaller, and the farther you go up here, the faster the file is rendered, the video is rendered, but the larger the file size. And of course I have threads 14, but to be honest, I don't think this makes a whole bunch of difference. I think that one setting we were looking at is the one that makes the big difference for rendering. And just to do a confirmation, I'll run system monitor. You can see for yourself how many threads pop up. Oops. We'll go back. I'll hit render to file. And yes, overwrite it. And let's bring system monitor back up. And you can see really only one of those threads, or the equivalent of 1 thread, about 9% of the processor popped up there just briefly. So if you want to change that setting, of course you go to configure Kdenlive environment, and normally when I'm rendering I do 14 threads, so significantly more. So I'm going to change that back to 1 because I still have some editing to do on the video, and we will close it. And we will save it, and we will take down system monitor. Now the other tool that I use, not as often but I still do, is Audacity. And what I like to do is, let's have a look at, see if I can find a recent project that I was working on. Oh, I remember. What I was doing before is I was listening to different types of music. I'm going to go ahead and open one. And we'll go ahead and hit play. Sounds good. So I'm going to hit stop. And playback is working just fine with Audacity. Save project before closing? No. Now, I don't even know if Quake works. I don't even know why I have this icon on my desktop. It's been there forever, and I don't want to freeze my computer up and lose connectivity. So I'm just going to leave that one alone. But, of course, I do use the console quite often. We will make it a little larger text-wise. We can see that we are on 5.2.9-200 of the current version of the the kernel, and that's awesome. And then we have Oracle VM VirtualBox. Now, just an FYI, I did run this earlier and I had problems running it. So what did I do about that? Well, I did a whole bunch of research because I was getting a message that basically said AMD-V as in Victor was turned off, and I thought, no, it's definitely on in my BIOS because I've been using Oracle Virtual Manager. So I went and did some searching, and I found out that in actuality it had been turned back off in the BIOS after the install. Now I've seen this happen occasionally, and I thought it was really strange. So while I was in the BIOS, I did take some pictures so you can have a look at them. I had a terrible time finding these settings in my BIOS. It was absolutely awful. I went into where you would expect to find such things in settings, and unfortunately I could not find anything regarding the virtualization technology, usually called VT when you have a Intel processor, but it's AMD-V as in Victor when you have an AMD processor. So I went through all the settings and I couldn't find anything, and I was about to give up. Finally, I thought, well, okay, I'll just go through stuff in overclocking. And I basically went through and looked at each one of these. And I came upon SVM mode, and thankfully, the help actually showed me some decent information. So that was really useful because it told me I'm looking at enabling or disabling CPU virtualization. So I changed the SVM mode to enabled, and everything was kosher. And now I am able to go ahead and launch a virtual machine. So just the update was sufficient. I didn't have to do anything special. All the kernel modules that were required were compiled upon the installation. So everything went perfectly fine. And we're looking at my Windows virtual machine. I keep this around just in case I have to do something Windows related. Of course, the system that I'm on is dual boot, so I can boot up to Windows 10 if I want to and have hardware direct support because it's running right off the rails, right off the hardware. But the last time I was in Windows, honestly, was, I don't know, a year ago, 6 months, last year sometime. I was playing a video game, Mass Effect, and of course, it's no longer, well, I mean, it's still working, but I got sick, so I wasn't able to do what I wanted to and keep playing the game. But anyway, you may be asking yourself, yeah, wow, that's really slow. Well, the reason for that, if we go into the Virtual Manager and we look at the settings for Windows 10 and go to System and then Processor, you can see that right now I only have one CPU core. So even though it says 4, actually now that I say that, I think it is using 4, so that would be correct. And I did give it 100% of the execution cap, so I'm a little bit surprised that it hasn't come up yet. Let's try to adjust the screen size and see if that does anything. Of course, I did test this earlier. I wanted to make sure it was working. Well, now it's not. So let's see if we can reset the machine. And we'll let it reboot and see if it comes up on the second boot up. So we do get the login screen. I don't know if it just needs more cores or what's up with it. And we'll let it load. Okay, second time's the charm apparently. Let's just grab Firefox real quick and ensure that we've actually got a working system here. Now normally I'd give this system several more cores and also more memory, but right now of course I'm doing a capture with OBS. VirtualBox Guest Editions update. Well, I would do that, but not right now. Let's go ahead and use our new tab and go to youtube.com. Okay. Everything seems to be working well. Oops, didn't want to do that. Actually I do, but I want to do it the right way. We're going to power this machine off and do a shutdown. Now we can do a really quick look at LibreOffice. Let's go ahead and open and it looks like it's going to open. Yeah, it did. It opened on my second window, so I'm going to go ahead and open this full. And there is a important document that I use quite frequently, which is here in recent documents, and yeah, I think that's the one. I got to rename this though. That is not the correct name. So we'll go ahead and click it, and I have here the 4K render wars. I basically have a video that I render. It's like 2 minutes long into 4K using different editors. You might say, hey, why is that so small? You can zoom it up. That is true, but before I do that, I want to show you I do have a graph here, a chart, and for some reason, well, I'm going to say because it's not as good as Microsoft Windows Office, if I zoom up on this tab, it'll also zoom up all the other tabs. So we'll try it and just see what happens. So we'll go up to 140. We'll go back to sheet 2, and you can see it zoomed up. So there's no tab independent zooming, which is most unfortunate, and I would like to see that, considering I just did an update. This is a feature that it just should be available, if you know what I mean. I suppose I could take this and shrink it way down, and then, you know, make it much smaller, and then I could just go back to 100% for everything. But LibreOffice is working. Are there any other tools that I need that I use frequently? These are my favorites. System settings, terminal. It makes sense to try system settings. Just go in and make sure everything's working correctly. Let's just check the energy savings. So I have it set to switch off after 60 minutes, but that's overkill. I'm going to change it to 30 minutes. And I do not suspend my session. I haven't had good luck with desktops doing a suspend. It just doesn't seem to work well for me. And I'm going to go ahead and apply and close. Alright folks, there you have it. Success. We've upgraded Fedora 28 to Fedora 30, skipping the Fedora 29 update. Didn't look like we could do it in the GUI, but we were able to do it in the command line, which made me very happy. As you can see, all my applications appear to be working well. If I run into peculiar problems, I'll let you know, but I don't think I'm going to. There really wasn't much of a difference between Fedora 28 and 29, so it should have been capable of doing a nice linear upgrade like we did. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like and subscribe. If you really liked it, consider joining my Patreon. You can start at $1 a month, $5 a month, whatever you're able to do. It always helps out, and I'm going to try to get to the point where I can produce 2 videos a week again. Health permitting, we'll see how things go. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Fast Gadgets. This video was made possible with support from viewers like you. If you find this video useful, consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/FastGadgets.